For today's Free Kids Cooking class, we are going to be making no-bake peanut butter oatmeal bars. So we are going to be using the stove today, so I'm going to turn that on right now to about medium-high. Okay, and I know you can't see my head when I go back there. I don't have a good enough system here, big enough screen, but you can see the stove, right? So you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So the first thing is to get your oven on and heat it up, and then we are going to be adding 4 ingredients all at the same time. So we're going to kind of prepare those ingredients so they'll be ready to go. So we are going to add 2 cups of sugar. So I have my big sugar container. Okay, sugar is right here. All right, and so we want 2 cups of sugar, and we want to make sure we do an even measure, right? So the top of the measuring cup is flat with sugar when we put it in. So to do that, the easiest way is to get a knife. So I'm going to make sure my knife and my measuring cup ready to go. Okay, and then we are going to do a 1/2 cup milk. So here's my milk, and then we're going to get a 1/2 cup measurement ready to go, and we'll put that over there as well. And then we're going to do a dash of salt. Okay, so does anyone know how much a dash of salt is? Can you guess what it might be, how you would measure that? So honestly, you can just take your fingers and put some in, just a little dash. I like to do 1/8 of a teaspoon for my dash. Okay, so we're adding this in. And then the last ingredient that we're going to add at the beginning of the recipe, of course we're going to add everything in at some point, but at the very beginning we are going to add a 1/2 cup of butter. So this is the one you really need to prepare in advance because you want to cut it into little sections like we do every time we use butter or we melt or cook with butter. So I'm going to go ahead, I have a knife, I have a cutting board, and I'm just going to cut my butter into little sections. Don't worry too much about the exact size. Just, 1/2 inch or something. Just cut it into sections. If they're touching, that's okay too. We're just kind of making it easier to melt our butter so that it melts faster and more evenly all around the entire pan and doesn't get clumped up. Okay, so now all of our ingredients are ready. We're gonna go put them all in the pan. So remember, it's a 1/2 cup butter, a 1/2 cup milk, 2 cups of sugar, and a dash of salt. That's what I'm going to be putting into my pan right now, and then I'll stir it up. Be right back. Okay, so now everything is in our pan and that is melting. Now we want to get that to a boil. That's our goal. So I'm actually going to turn my stove up just a tiny bit, just to help it get to that boil. And then it's going to boil for 1 minute. Okay, so we're doing medium-high heat and then it has to boil for 1 minute. I couldn't remember the exact amount of time. And then once it's boiled for 1 minute, we're going to take it off the stove and we're going to add the rest of our ingredients in. So for taking it off the stove, something you're going to want to have prepared, I have a little hot pad here, and I'm going to put this on my countertop, and then I'll be able to put my hot pan on top of this to be able to work with it and add the rest of the ingredients. So grab a hot pad, it'll help you out in the future. And then after all of our ingredients are mixed together, we are going to put our no-bake peanut butter oatmeal bars in a 9x13-inch pan. So I'm going to prepare that while we're waiting for our ingredients to boil. So I'm going to take some wax paper just rip it off and then squish it into your pan. It's not going to stay exactly formed in there, and that's okay. But you're just kind of getting ready. And then I'm just going to spray mine with non-stick cooking spray. Wax paper technically is supposed to already be non-stick, but peanut butter is very sticky, so I double up sometimes. Okay, so we don't need those. I'm going to put my pan out of the way, and then I'm going to go and stir my pot and see if it's boiling. Okay, so make sure you stir it. If you don't stir it, these types of things will burn, and they'll burn really quickly. So make sure you stir it every once in a while you're watching it. So while it's going, it's not ready yet. So we're going to prepare the ingredients that we want to add when it comes off of the stove. So one of the reasons I like to prepare things in advance is because, especially with recipes like this, things go really quickly, right? When it comes off the stove, it's really hot, and we want to add as many of our ingredients as we can while it's hot, so that it's easy to mix and easy to stir, and then you can easily finish your recipe, right? When it gets hard, you're not going to be able to add ingredients, you're not going to be able to stir. So one of the ingredients we're going to get ready here is 1 cup, I believe, yes, 1 cup of peanut butter. So I have my 1 cup measurement, and you can use any kind of peanut butter you have. I'm sure almond butter and all those other choices will work as well. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to use a spatula. That's the easiest way for me to get peanut butter out of a jar. I'm going to fill up my 1 cup. Another thing I wanted to talk about for this episode was the difference between cooking and baking. So this is a no-bake recipe, right? But we seriously, right now, we have something on the stove, right? We are cooking, right? So how is this a no-bake recipe? Well, when you are baking, that means that something goes into the oven. All right, so a no-bake recipe just means that you don't have to put anything in the oven. It doesn't mean you won't have to cook any ingredients or heat things up, put things on the stove, put things in the microwave. It just means it's not going in the oven. I can hear mine boiling. I'm going to go back and check it. It's perfect timing too. I have my peanut butter ready to go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to come back over and talk. Mine's boiling. We have to let it boil for 1 minute. I'm going to approximate that 1 minute. But it's a nice white frothy boil. So that's what you're going to see when it starts to boil. A lot of the ingredients you put in were white. Sugar, milk, salt, and then the butter was the only thing that had any color to it, a little bit of yellow. I'm going to go stir one more time. Okay, so we are going to add a couple cups of oats, and so I grabbed another 1 cup measuring cup because my other 1 cup measuring cup has peanut butter in it, right? So you might need to grab a different one, or if you don't have one, you can use 2 1/2s, right? You can use 1/2 and do it twice. That would work too. Okay, so we are ready to add the rest of our ingredients. So the first things that we need to add are the peanut butter and the vanilla. Okay, so how much vanilla is it? It's 1 teaspoon vanilla. So I'm going to go ahead and add the peanut butter first. We've pre-measured that. So I'll put that in. It's nice when things are ready to go. You can just dump it in really quickly and easily. Okay. All right. Got that. And then I'm going to do 1 teaspoon vanilla. So we have our measuring spoons. Got my vanilla. Now this is especially important to do kind of quickly because the peanut butter needs to be mixed while it's hot, right? So it can melt and become nice and creamy with all the rest of your ingredients. So dump it in and then mix, mix, mix. You're gonna mix until the peanut butter is completely incorporated and nice and creamy, all right? That's the goal. So hopefully you can see in my pot, I hope so, you can see that the lumps of the peanut butter are dispersing, right? I put it in basically 2 big chunks and they're mixing all together and dispersing. So when I don't have any lumps yet is when I can move on and add the next ingredient, which is going to be our oats, okay? So let's check our recipe, see how many oats we need. 3 cups of oats, okay? This is nice, we're getting really close. So if you only have a couple lumps yet, I would just target those lumps with your spatula or your mixing spoon, whatever you're using, smooth them out, and then you'll be ready to go. So mine looks nice and smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and add 3 cups of oats. All right, 1 cup. I kind of put them in various places throughout the bowl so they'll mix in nicely. A little bit easier for me if they're not right on top of each other in the pot for mixing. Okay, got my oats in. I'll mix one more time. This is the last ingredient before we put everything in the 9 by 13 inch pan. So one reason I like to use a spatula for stuff like this is because it scrapes the sides really well. My spatula is good up to like 425 degrees, so I don't have to worry about it when I'm leaving it on the stove or cooking with it. And a spatula is not going to scrape my pan, right? I don't want to use anything metal in here because I really like my pots and pans, and I don't want to scratch them up. So that's one reason I like to cook with a spatula over the stove. All right, so here we go. Here is our 9 by 13. We're gonna dump in everything we just made. We're gonna dump it all in. Okay. Oops, of course. Okay. I'm gonna put this hot pan to the side. And then I kind of got the top of my paper there. Okay, so spread it out. Again, another reason I've only had to use a spatula, right? I haven't had to use a mixing spoon and a spatula because the spatula is easy to kind of spread it out and scrape the sides of my bowls. Okay, so while it's hot, so we gotta work quickly, we are gonna take 12 ounces of chocolate chips. Every other measurement that we have used today has been in cups. Okay, so why do you think 12 ounces is the measurement for the chocolate chips? Does anyone have any ideas? It's kind of a silly reason. It's because 12 ounces, 11.5 ounces, is the size of 1 bag of chocolate chips. So if you have a regular sized bag of chocolate chips from the grocery store, just dump that whole thing on here. If you don't, all right, 8 ounces is a cup. So 12 ounces is how much? Okay, if 8 ounces is a cup, you have 8 ounces and then you have 4 extra ounces to make 12. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So how many cups is 12 ounces? Does anyone know? Think about it. Okay, the answer is 12 ounces is 1.5 cups. All right, because 4 ounces is half of 8, right? And 8 ounces is 1 cup. So you would have 1.5 cups. So what I did to do my measurement, now I've already used 2 1-cup measuring cups, right? I've already used them. So what I did is I have a 3/4 of a cup measuring cup, and I did 2 of them because 3/4 plus 3/4 is 1.5. All right, so that's how I got to 1.5 cups or 12 ounces because I obviously have way more chocolate chips in my container than just 1 regular sized bag from the grocery store. Okay, so this is the last thing that we do with this recipe. We do kind of need to have the chocolate chips start melting. This is why we want to do this really quickly, is because we want the chocolate chips to melt. Because when they do, we are going to take our spatula and we are going to smear the top of the chocolate chips all over our bars, and then it's going to make like a little chocolate layer, which is kind of like a chocolate frosting on top of your peanut butter bars. So mine are not melting quite fast enough, so they are going to need a little bit of time to melt, which is totally okay. But that is the last step, all right? When you get here, put your chocolate chips on, get them to melt, and one trick, let me show you a trick. Okay, so to help them melt, if you have a lid for your 9 by 13 inch pan, just put that lid right on the top, right? Because that's going to help capture the heat in the pan and help the chocolate chips melt. So you can do that, and then in a couple minutes, come back and check it, and when they're melted, you're going to want to use your spatula across the entire top so that you can have a little chocolate layer. Thanks so much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed this recipe.